Back out, right? Don't we feel like we're kind of doing this again? It's good to be out and doing shit, right?
Indeed.
It actually started, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and it started somewhere in high school when I had a friend who said, you know, I got headshots from a friend, and so I went out and got headshots. I liked the idea of like doing commercials at the time.
Sure.
And my first commercial, my big break, you ready? I played a hot dog in a Lotto commercial. But because I was... So I did I had this big old hot dog suit on, and it was a lottery commercial. It was something about like winning the lottery and not having to work a bad job. And I kept futzing with my suit, like in character. And the producer was like, well, do you need to fix the suit for him? And I was like, no, I'm just doing this. Yeah. This is part of it. And it killed, and they loved it. And so then I did a couple more commercials around the Oregon area, and I went to college there and graduated college and did 2 years at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. If anybody West Coast to the festival, it's a lovely place to be. And I came to LA after that, and the rest is history. You know?
That is a great segue, actually. Go ahead.
That carved out, it's very hard to then go to LA and make a career, so I didn't, but that's a long story for another day.
No, it is a perfect story for now. It actually segues to my next question. I know you probably get a question of, okay, when did that first break start? My question to you is, when you, upon leaving undergrad, a lot of times, or say on occasion, that career just jump starts immediately, and then on other occasions, you have to pay your dues, if you will. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that terminology, but are there any interesting odd jobs that you had, perhaps, that you love to share that you recall?
Yes, so I had to pay my dues. I spent a few years in Los Angeles before I had some more commercials. I kind of made my way into film and television via commercials. And but before that, I worked at a place called, for the youngins here, they're not going to know what this is, but for my crowd, Circuit City. Do you remember Circuit City?
Wow.
You remember Circuit City? So, and the reason why I worked at Circuit City is because when I was younger, I worked for 2 weeks at a restaurant, and they fired me because I was terrible, right? Serving was not my thing. And all of my friends, when we went to LA, they were all servers, and I'm like, I'm not going to try that again. Didn't work the first time. But what I did do is for the holidays, I worked at Circuit City in Portland, Oregon. And they said, well, there's a Circuit City in Los Angeles, and we can just transfer you down there. And that's literally where I worked for the first probably year and a half until I started doing commercial work. And then I stopped working. Actually, Circuit City kind of shut down right around the time.
Yeah.
It's not that I stopped working, it's that they didn't want me anymore. They were like, you know what, we're done with Circuit City. Best Buy took over.
Cool. And I mean, I saw, in looking at roles that you've done, earlier in your career, there were opportunity to do what they call day player roles and to have, parts to kind of, build your resume. But I have to ask, how did Dodgeball come about?
Dodgeball was actually my first real movie. I had done a small, maybe $250,000 feature film, which is nothing for a budget it's hard to make a movie at that level. But I did it with Stephen Root and Justin Long. They were both in this small film. And randomly, and so then I start doing commercials, and I put all of my commercials back then on a CD. And it was like a video CD. What do you call these? Come on, help me, nerds. Well, not a DVD, but it was like a media CD. It was anyway, whatever those are, and you can, and I sent all of my commercials to like casting directors. And my manager was like, nobody's going to care about your commercials. They care about TV and film. And I'm like, well, I don't do TV and film yet because I'm not old, I just got here. Right. So I put that together, and one of my first auditions was Dodgeball. And I see Justin Long, was auditioning for it as well, and Stephen Root. And so I kind of walked into a friendly space, and I was up against Jason Segel for the role that I got. And I can say that because Jason's had an incredible career, and we are not in competition anymore. We both have have had our good success. But so it was Jason and I, and this is callbacks. I'd had my first audition. I created that weird character that I play. And in my second audition, they come and they're like, okay, now Joel, you're gonna go and you're auditioning in front of Ben Stiller and all the producers, and you're gonna do this scene with Vince. And I was like, okay. And they go, just to warn you, he might just go off script and he might just improv a ton. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? This is my first time doing any of this. Testing for auditioning for like all the producers, 20 people in this room. So I go up, I do my scene. It was a couple scenes from the movie, right? And at the end of this, he starts to improv and he's just asking me questions in character about my character. And this goes on for like 2 minutes. And I am breaking out in a cold sweat. I mean, there's just sweat running down my face. But he thought it was funny and they thought it was funny. They're giggling a little bit. And I swear to God, this is true. At some point, right at the end, I turn around, look over my shoulders, and Vince says, what do you look, Owen is my character, he's like, what are you looking for, Owen? And I go, I'm just looking for a way out. And Stiller and them busted up, and they said, thank you very much, and I got the role, and that was how I got Dodgeball. The breaking out in a cold sweat probably helped me.
Nice. Well, further into that, most people probably aren't even thinking of this, but like in terms of the preparation for the role, it's a comedy, but it's a very physical role. So like, what went into the preparation of that in terms of like, did you have to do a lot of cardio? Like, did you have to get in, help with Dodgeball League? Like,
we did, well, not a Dodgeball League, but they actually had Dodgeball players come and work with us, and we spent 2 months like practicing the routines of, what we were going to do. It wasn't just obviously a bunch of people just throwing balls.
Sure, yeah.
Like all of that was coordinated and staged the way that we had to do it, Rip being in a wheelchair and us, going through like it was like a dance. We had to figure out the rhythm to it. But it was so much fun. We actually, here's a little bit of an Easter egg. We started Dodgeball with, I want to say there ended up being 5 players per team, but we started with like 6 or 7, and our team was bigger than what it was. And so it went down to 5, and when it went down to 5, because they realized it was just easier to have 5 people on both teams, and when it went down, they announced this, and they said, we're going to take this 7 to 5, and I'm like, I'm cut. I'm gone. I don't have a part anymore, right? And so, but what they ended up doing was, instead of cutting me, they made me I don't know if you remember, they made me the assistant, coach to Rip Torn's character, and he hated me the entire time. It was, not in person. I'm a lovely professional actor. But it actually created for a really comedic dynamic between the two of us because he could hate on Owen the whole time. Nice.
Now, I would be remiss also, and many of you are here because of this as well, cult favorite. Whenever it's on TV, I have to watch it. Doesn't matter what point in the movie it is, and that's Grandma's Boy.
Adios, turd nuggets.
Yes. Where did JT come from?
So JP was a fun character that Nick Swardson created. So Nick was the writer of Grandma's Boy, and Nick Goosen directed it. But Nick and I kind of created a lot of this character, like while I was auditioning. I auditioned for it, and I did this sort of Tourette's thing that I did in the movie. Yeah. And he was like, "That's really good." Kind of like work from there. And mind you, I was up for this Frankie Muniz. Remember Frankie Muniz?
Wow.
He was up for this role as well, and he ended up doing another show. So randomly, and it was awesome because I got to play this kind of pretty iconic stoner character. But he passed on it, and so that's that. See, I'm telling you guys, if you want to know really how things work, it's not cut and dry. A lot of the times it's circumstance and situation, and like if
it's meant to be universe.
But it's meant to be because I think that everybody, that character just sort of flourished under what we created. And so Nick and I would just sit and talk, and we're like, how do we make this character so dumb and so ridiculous that like we can, it can be like this iconic character, and it wasn't written as big and crazy in the script. And so we just started making riffing scenes. As an example, if you remember the movie and I'm up on the wall with my leather jacket and I turn around and I say, "How can he see me?" Totally made up on the spot. They had what's his name, Alan Covert, walking out of Linda Cardellini's office, and they needed a transition scene between doing that to whatever the next scene was. And Swarty comes up and he's like, "Go over to that wall." I'm like, all right. He's like, "Pretend like they can't see you," and that's all it was. And we just made the rest up. So, needless to say, we had a really good time, and it was fun. That whole, I'm family with a lot of those guys still. That was like 16 years ago. Crazy.
Jeez. Well, final question to you, and then I'll shoot out to you guys. Of course, as things continued, you were part of a small independent film called Avatar. Little small film. So, how did you come across being a part of that?
I love telling this story because it gives anybody who's wanting to pursue their own dreams and their own creative thing in life hope, because I did Grandma's Boy and I didn't know what was going to be good for my career and what wasn't. Right? I was a character actor. I was just trying to make movies, and I do this role and then I get an audition for Avatar. And one of the things that we had to do for Avatar, Jim Cameron was not in the room at these first auditions. So I do the scene, one of the scenes that you eventually see in the movie, in the first movie. And then the casting director, Margie Simkin, who I love now and we're friends, but at the time, she was like, "Okay, Joel, take this outside, and when you come back in, do the scene, but speak gibberish the entire time." I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, she said, "Well, what Jim wants to see is how you communicate without anybody understanding what you're saying." And at the time, I didn't know that it was because they were going to create an entire different language with a UFC professor, who created this Na'vi language for us. So it's a legit language. You could speak it fluently. At the time, I just walked back in there and I said, "Okay," and I did and every time she would say her line, I would have to speak gibberish. And I do this whole thing and I speak gibberish and I communicate the way that I can through gibberish, and I walk out and I'm like, I am never gonna audition for her again. I embarrassed myself. This was terrible. Nobody's gonna see me in Hollywood. This is so bad. She's never gonna bring me back. But then a couple weeks later, they called me in and I was meeting with Jim. I was sitting down with Jim and John Landau, the producer, and he said, and he sat down for a half an hour and we talked before anything. And I asked him, I said, "We haven't auditioned. I haven't even done the lines for you yet. Is this just to get to know me?" And he goes, "Here's the thing. We're going to make a franchise out of this. And I had to know that I could put up with you for 10 years of making this thing. And so that's what this is about. And that's what, when you come back, you're going to meet some of the other, actors that we're looking at." And it was Sam and Zoe Saldana and everybody. And so we ended up meeting. But a lot of it was just whether he could put up with, whether he liked us as humans, right?
Wow.
And so he did like us, and we're now, we've created a really fun relationship. But part of that relationship was around, I said, finally, I was up against crazy names for this role. And I said, "Why did you choose me?" And he goes, "Well, you're perfect for it, you're tall, and, it works for the Na'vi side of things, for the Avatar side of things." But he goes, "And also, I show all of my kids the auditions, and one of my kids said, 'You should hire the guy from Mom's Boy.'" And I said,
There you go.
"Do you mean Grandma's Boy?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think so. Grandma." He's like, "I've never seen it." And I was like, "Are you telling me that I got the franchise role in Avatar because I did JP from Grandma's Boy?" And he goes, "My son liked it."
Oh, man.
So it all connects.
There you go. So I'll open it out to you guys. You have a question? Yes.
Yeah.
If you can come on up. We actually have a mic up here, if you like.
I can hear you.
All right,
Yeah,
cool,
you can project.
So from
Yeah, so the good way to break apart how we made Avatar was anytime I was playing live Norm Spellman, human flesh, Norm Spellman, We were in New Zealand. I can hear me, I think. They were in He's pissed about it too. He's like, get your face in that microphone or die. And now he's out. He's just going to go eat.
Break. Yeah.
He's like, fuck this guy. Anytime I was Norm Spellman in the human flesh, we shot in New Zealand on stages, nothing outside, not like Lord of the Rings where they're using the mountains and the woods and the forest. No, it was on stages. We were breathing oxygen. Think about like whenever we were breathing oxygen, we were inside, right? And we would green screen, and anything outside would be built later. When we were blue characters, avatars, we were shooting in Los Angeles, and we were in motion capture suits. We called them performance capture suits, so they were able to, facially take every little movement of my muscle, and that's how they coordinated with the animation teams at Weta, which is Peter Jackson's company. So all of our information that we were capturing in Los Angeles would then be sent to the Weta guys, and then we would go meet them over there and do our what's called simulcam, which is when the avatars and the humans were in the same space. We would shoot all of that in New Zealand. Very long process. Took about 3 years to make the first one, and it's taken about 3 years to make the two new sequels. We've shot 2 more sequels. They come out December 2022 and December 2024. And then we shoot 2 more after that. It's a long, and then I retire, and I'm done.
Just drop the mic.
Yeah.
Yes. Next question. Yes. Go ahead.
Ooh. Favorite ever? I played. I don't know if you've seen Pericles ever, but Pericles is a big sort of. Anyway, I played the fisherman in Pericles, and that was my big role at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I was young. I was like 20 years old. So they took a chance on me. They gave me a meaningful role, and I played it well. And I think that's probably my favorite character that I've played in the world of. But I've played Hamlet like in Black Box Theater, and that was fun, But I think that like as far as just like being in front of 1,000-person crowd in a big globe, of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, that was it. Pericles, yeah. Yes. I love Bones. Did 8 years with Bones. Yeah. Yes. Oh, we did so many, but my favorite was we had to have live beetles eating around a skull to kind of like, don't ask me to remember why, I'm so bad. But it's a real thing that they do. They take in and they kind of eat the flesh off of, this is so gross, but they do this, and it uncovers other information underneath, and then they actually test the beetles to see if they can get some DNA. It's a whole thing. It's a process, but the way they have animal rights unions that they bring to so if anytime you're working with a dog or a bear or anything like that, you have to have like a trainer with you and a couple other people. And it just so happens that even when you're working with beetles. So they bring in these beetles, there's like 50 beetles, and they have like 5 handlers. I'm like, it's beetles. You can't just get beetles? Like, beetles now have feelings, guys. You cannot do anything anymore without having handlers. I am pretty sure it's just the union's way to make a bunch of money. But so we had to do that, and I thought that was funny because they had to tell us how to handle the beetles, and we could not hurt the beetles. No beetle was harmed in the making of the Bones episodes.
Thank you. You have another question? Don't be shy. Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, it was, and one of the things that we did before we started the performance capture side was we took the lead, probably 7 cast members in the first one. We went to Hawaii and we tramped around the jungly, wet, tropical woods of the island in Kauai, so that we could, and we rehearsed we took 3 weeks and just rehearsed all of the major scenes in like areas where we had to go and trek down, kind of jungly areas holding onto trees, slipping on mud, you know, and we took all of this and they shot all of it. And so we took all of that information, and what Jim did with our incredible crew, he recreated parts of what we were doing on the day in Kauai, and he put all of that, you know, he just sort of like created with 2x4s and like these like, you know, boxes and shit, and we would just walk up a trail just like we were that day, and we would slip when we needed to slip and kind of find ourselves and pull ourselves up. So it made it feel, it was just all gray stage, but it kind of gave us, you know, this sort of personal feeling of what we had rehearsed in, just because we could grab onto things and walk around trees. Now, I'm going to blow your mind for a second. The way that Avatar works, for the tech guys, people out there, the way that Avatar works is when we're on set in motion capture world, which is performance capture to us, we have these funny little rigs on, and we have like a little helmet that with the camera that comes out here. Well, the other cameras are infrared cameras, so they're actually not physically shooting anything in these spaces. They have reference cameras that they have small cameras around us just to make sure that they have the information. But one of the incredible things that we did on that, and it was groundbreaking, and we did it on the sequels as well, is that Jim had a monitor in his hand. And in the front of that monitor was a big ball, just like the little balls on our suits. And what the infrared cameras told that piece of tech was that it was a camera. And so if he was going to point it toward me, when I was in my suit, he would see my avatar and not my human me. So it was live action recreating what the avatars look like. But it wasn't 4K final view. It looked more like a 360 version of it back in the time, right? Like an Xbox, before Xbox One came out. It looked like that first version of it, or the first PlayStation. So it was but it introduced us to what the world would look like. And all the trees were there, and the sun was in the right place, and the wind would come through. And so we knew kind of where we were the whole time. It was a really phenomenal piece of tech that they brought to this whole thing. Yeah. It's a good question. Yes. Because there is no way to comprehend what that final result looks like. It's just, you've never seen anything like it. In fact, I would argue that all the 3D movies that came after were not as satisfying in the 3D space as Avatar was. It was really like every muscle, one of the things that we had to do every time that we would go in is take a capture of ourselves. And we spent so many hours just smiling and looking mad and doing all this stuff with this sort of round globe of 100 cameras, still photography cameras. And we would make a facial expression, and they would take a picture and just go, and we had to do this for hours and hours. And it's the way for the Weta CG artist to understand how the muscles in our faces worked, and the lips, how the lips would, and so that's why our avatar characters look so much like the expressions that we make in real life. And that's the process right there, yeah. Yeah, that's the goal. And the new ones are, oh man. I can't say much, but yeah, it's a whole fun world out there. Yeah. Yeah, good.
Awesomeness. Next question?
Yep.
Yes.
Hatchet was awesome. First of all, you look great. I just like everybody to check out your outfit. It's just rad. It's just the orange on the orange. You've done a good job here. Hatchet was fun. Hatchet was maybe my 4th movie that I ever made. No clue that it would turn into this big franchise. And, Adam Green and I are very good friends. But we shot that about an hour north of Los Angeles, not in Louisiana, not on swamps. We created those swamps. We did the whole thing on an $800,000 budget, which is just nothing in feature film world. And we created, I think, one of the more iconic, Victor Crowley, one of the more iconic horror guys. In fact, right now, they just did a big release of 4 of the most iconic slasher horror people. It's Freddy, Jason, Candyman, Tony Todd, and Victor Crowley. And they're doing these big, sort of release of these molds that are coming out in, the NFT space. And Adam has done a really good job working his, people who love this franchise to the point where the merchandise is catching up to it. So yeah, it's been a great ride to be a part of that. And I don't know if anybody's seen all of the franchises, but I make a little Easter egg cameo in another one. They got to go watch, right, pal?
All right, good question. You have another one? Anyone? Yes. Got you next.
Oh, I got my eye cut open because the dodgeballs were actually soft, right? The ones that we used were like didn't have air in them. They were just padded, so they were super light. But they had to put the AADA, the National Dodgeball Association thing on the side of it, and that actually had a little bit of, it was about this thick, and it had kind of sharp edges. And at one point, it's when at the end of the movie, Missy Pyle and I see each other on the different sides, and we come up and we have this moment, and I'm like, hey, and they smack me in the head with it. Well, the first time, if you look close, I got a cut on my eye because the first time they hit it, I'm supposed to act like I don't know it's coming. And the first time it just caught me, man. It just cut down my side there. I'm okay. I lived through it, everybody. It's fine.
I know you had a question. Yeah.
I have to be honest, I've loved my time in front of the camera, but I just finished directing my 5th feature called Some Other Woman. My 4th feature is out in November. It comes out November 19th. It's a remake of a Korean horror film called Hide and Seek. Very successful movie over in Korea. And so we did the American version of it with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers and Jacinda Barrett. It's wonderful. You should go check it out. It's an art house thriller that I think has some fun twists and turns. So I think that at this point I'm really getting behind the camera more, and I'm directing a lot more. But as far as what the gift to my acting career, I would say, is being a part of the Avatar franchise. And some of that is also because of what I've learned along the way. I've learned how to become a director myself and how to produce films and really just be so tenacious. There's no more harder worker in all of Hollywood than James Cameron. He is there before everybody. He's there at the end after everybody wraps. He's still there working. You've never seen a harder worker and more tenacious human to study and be excellent in his craft. And so I've really been, I call it my master's, because I never got to go and get a graduate degree. And so it's sort of like was my master's course being under Jim Cameron, just watching him for the last 10 years, working with him. So yeah, I'd have to say that.
Cool. We have one last question if anyone would like to ask. Anyone? Got time for one more question? Real quick. No? Okay. All right. So Joel, thank you so much for coming out here to Rhode Island Comic Con, man. Can we give a round of applause?
Thank you, guys.
Joel David Moore.
This was fun. Glad that people are back out, and glad that you stuck with these Comic Cons. You knew it was going to come back, and we appreciate you being out here.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.